This will be a very short video, but about domain and range of our polynomial functions. And what we'll see is there's a kind of theme to the domain and range for our even degree versus odd degree polynomials. So let's focus on the evens first. So domain for these, in terms of what we can plug in for x, we can plug in absolutely anything. So for the domain, all real numbers. And for the one down below as well. So that's going to be typical of all even degree polynomials. Now the range, when we go to look at the y values, what we can see is, okay, it's not defined, and then our function starts. So for the range, it's going to start at this turning point, or you could think of it as this absolute, or not absolute, yes, absolute minimum is what we would want. It would start at this absolute minimum and then go off to positive infinity. Now this could switch around like we talked about the reflections. So for the range, I'm just going to make a note of it depends on the absolute minimum. Actually, absolute minimum or maximum, because in the terms of that flipped scenario, it would be the absolute maximum. So with the range, you would need to look for that value. It's the same for this even degree polynomial down here. It's like we have nothing, nothing, and then at that absolute minimum, our function starts and is defined off to positive infinity. So the key is with the even degree polynomials, domain is all real numbers. Range, you'll have to look for this absolute minimum, maximum that's going to limit the range. For odd degree polynomials, if we look at domain for both of these, for x, we can plug in absolutely anything and we'll have our graph. Same thing down here, we can plug in absolutely anything. So domain, all real numbers. For the range, well, as we talked about with the long run behavior, it's usually starting at negative infinity, then goes off to positive, or even if it's flipped, it comes from positive and goes down to negative. It's covering the entire y-axis. So we can have absolutely any y value for these odd degree polynomials. So the range, also all real numbers. So that's the breakdown of domain and range with our polynomial functions. Find the degree. If it's an odd degree, that domain and range is going to be real simple because they'll both be all real numbers. If it's an even degree, you have your domain of all real numbers, but the range you'll have to do a little work with finding those absolute minimums and maximums. We had practice with that with the quadratics, with finding the vertex. With more complicated polynomials, what we would need is a graphing tool like Desmos, and typically it makes it easy to click on those turning points so you can find it with a graphing tool and then use that to form your range.